Yo, yes. They wants to start straight with music? Because it said want me to talk on here, but or talking. Okay.
Click track. Everything that's going on in the world, we felt like this song would be befitting because before we can actually start to see change in our world, we have to first be that change in the world. So if you know the song, sing along with me. How can we have peace in the Middle East when there's none at home? How can we have understanding in the land when there's none in the woman and there's none in the man? How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot hear loud? And where does this peace on earth begin if not in the home? Where do we go now? Do we let the devil in, or do we get up and fight? Surely we know how to conquer all our fears, bring an end to the violence, bring an end to the tears. How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot heal our own? And where does this peace on earth begin if not in the home? This is my favorite part. It says, when there's too much talk about it, too many walk without it. But tell me, where is the love? Or where is the God in your life? Now to my left, a woman abuses her children. To my right, somebody's beating their wife. Tell me, where is the love? And where is the God in your life? How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot heal our own? And where does this peace on earth begin if not in the home?
A change is coming.
I was born by the river in a little bitty tent. Oh, just like that river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long
I'm Prince Chestnut, representative for Historic District 67, which encompasses the hallowed civil rights ground from Perry County to Selma and Dallas County. I am serving as the moderator for this portion of the Conference on Social Justice. In 2020, we've lost giants from Chad Boseman to C.T. Vivian to the great John Lewis. And these gentlemen exemplified lives dedicated to service to level the playing field and move us closer to a world where all lives matter, which means that Black lives matter because all lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. We see what is happening in the streets. The people are crying out for equality and justice. I will now introduce our illustrious speaker this evening, Congresswoman Terri Sewell. She's in her 5th term representing Alabama's 7th congressional district. She is one of the first women elected to Congress from Alabama in her own right, and she is the first Black woman to ever serve in the Alabama congressional delegation. Congresswoman Sewell sits on the exclusive House Ways and Means Committee and brings to the committee her more than 15 years of experience as a securities and public finances attorney. Currently in the 116th Congress, she serves as vice chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, where she sits on 3 subcommittees: the Subcommittee on Health, Trade, and on Worker and Family Support. Congresswoman Sewell also serves on the distinguished House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, charged with the oversight for our national security. She is currently the chairwoman of the Subcommittee on Defense Intelligence and Warfighter Support, charged with the oversight of collection and timely dissemination of Department of Defense Intelligence with respect to support of all military operations. In her short time in Congress, Sewell has held several leadership positions, including freshman class president in the 112th Congress. This current term, she was selected by Democratic leadership to serve as Chief Deputy Whip and sits on the prestigious Steering and Policy Committee, which sets the direction of the Democratic Caucus. Congresswoman Sewell is a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, where she is co-chair of the Voting Rights Task Force. She is vice chair of the New Democrat Coalition, co-chair of the Congressional Voting Rights Caucus, vice chair of the Congressional HBCU Caucus, and co-chair of the Rural Caucus. A proud product of Alabama's rural Black Belt, Congresswoman Sewell was the first Black valedictorian of Selma High School. She is an honors graduate of Princeton University and Oxford University in England, and received her law degree from Harvard Law School. Congresswoman Sewell, the floor is now yours.
Thank you for that generous introduction, Representative Prince Chestnut. It was delivered the same way my mother wrote it, so thank you very much. I also want to thank you for working with me and my office as we represent our hometown of Selma, Alabama. I want to thank you, Representative Chestnut, for your dedication to your district and for all the work that you've done. To all of the elected officials and policymakers and participants in today's conference, I want to thank you all for not only participating in the policy conference, but for your public service and your commitment to the people that we serve. To the elected officials, I want to especially thank them on behalf of our communities and the people that we serve. I know that we can't do this alone. So many of you have been partners with my office to work on a myriad of issues affecting our shared constituents. No one can do this work alone. We are in the trenches together, and I want to thank you for that opportunity. I also want to thank our sponsors who have always stood ready to support us individually and collectively. That's Alabama Power, Alabama AFL-CIO, Alabama Cable, and Broadband Association, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and AT&T. Now, this policy conference comes to a close, I know today you had the opportunity to hear directly from Bryan Stevenson, and the topic was really criminal justice reform and sentencing guidelines. I now know that we're talking about social justice in this hour, and I thought that I would provide closing remarks on a theme of unprecedented times require unprecedented action. Are you ready? We indeed live in challenging times, unprecedented times, I would submit. We're dealing with a triple threat. First, a global pandemic, which literally threatens our lives. And we know that African Americans are disproportionately affected by COVID-19 pandemic. When I think of our own state of Alabama, where African Americans make up 26% of the vote, 26% of the population, but more than 40% of the deaths and 36% of the confirmed cases. It is critically important during this time that our lives are at stake. We need unprecedented action for these unprecedented times. Secondly, because of the global pandemic, we are now also being threatened, our very livelihoods are being threatened by an economic crisis. And thirdly, as we fight for our lives and we fight for our livelihoods, this administration has gone to great lengths to threaten our vote. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, unparalleled economic crisis, a racial reckoning, and now he wants to take our vote away. We're indeed at an inflection point. And I know and you know that democracy is messy. But in the search for a more perfect union, it takes ordinary citizens challenging our system to give an extraordinary social change. As elected officials, it is our responsibility to uplift and provide our communities with the resources that they deserve and the rights that they're guaranteed. Unfortunately, as Americans confront the loss and grief of a global pandemic, we also have to continue to live with the grief and violence of police brutality. Now, over the past few months, we've seen tens of thousands of Americans, biracial, intergenerational, take to the streets demanding justice, not only for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, but now Jacob Blake and Elijah McClain. We also know that there are countless Black Americans, men and women across this country who've been killed by the police. So many of them senselessly. The racism that causes our pain can be seen plainly in police brutality and in the staggering health disparities that our communities are experiencing during this pandemic. It can be seen in the thinly veiled attempts to put African Americans in our place. As a proud product of Selma, Alabama, I know that what happened on that bridge in my hometown serves as a beacon of truth to the world. But I submit to you that what happened in Birmingham, in Marion, in Tuscaloosa, in small and rural towns across the Black Belt were equally as important. For you see, we come from great stock. Don't let anyone tell you that we in Alabama don't come from great stock. It was ordinary people, Blacks and whites from Alabama, African Americans that had the temerity and the audacity to challenge government, to aggrieve government for redress. Ordinary citizens demanding extraordinary social change. And with the sweeping legislation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, after the bombing of the 4 little girls in Birmingham, and the sweeping legislation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Housing Act of 1968, These were seminal pieces of legislation that would never have occurred had it not been for the unprecedented actions of Alabamians. Your participation in the conversations that we've had over the past few days at this policy conference really illustrates the dedication that our leaders have in our various communities to make a difference. In order for Black people in Alabama to thrive, we must have accountability and we must have transparency. Our law enforcement officers must be accountable. Our elected officials must be accountable. And our communities have to demand more of both of us. The stark reality is that police brutality is a symptom of a larger problem, and that problem is systemic racism. For 400 years, more than 400 years, our country has failed to live up to the ideals for which it was founded. And this White House leadership that we now experience has not given a national strategy to a global pandemic that is disproportionately affecting African Americans across this country. In cities across the country, from Washington to Montgomery, we have seen unprecedented amounts of challenge. And the only way that we can deal with that, the best way we can deal with that, is to make sure that we're holding folks accountable. The solutions are clearly in our path. In order for us to succeed, we must have direct action. Now, we know that power concedes nothing without a challenge, nothing without a demand. It didn't when Frederick Douglass echoed those words so many years ago, and it doesn't now. We know that we must do our part, and we can only do our part if we're organized, if we're mobilized, and if we demand action. We must demand investments in our community for equity, social equity, economic equity, equity in education, in criminal justice, and so much more. I've worked closely with the Congressional Black Caucus, and I know, having worked with the Alabama Black Caucus, that we have worked diligently to try to address many of the systemic racism effects that are lingering in our own communities. We can't do it alone. We must have a local, a state, and a federal agenda. We must put together a legislative package that includes more than just addressing police brutality. We have to address inequity in sentencing. We have to address the ills that are directly affecting this generation and our future generations. Now, what I am most concerned about is the fact that this generation has not been able to see the direct impact of their peaceful protesting on the street and effective legislation in the halls of the State House and in the halls of Congress. We both know that we are hamstrung. Why? Because elections have consequences, my friends. We elected for the first time in 2010 a Republican State House, both the House and the Senate, as well as the governorship. And we're seeing the effects now. Likewise, we elected in 2016, 2018, Donald Trump to the White House, and we lost the Senate. Elections have consequences. All elections have consequences. And I submit to you that it's important that we remember the importance of doing legislation, but we also must know that rarely does change come from the halls of Congress or the halls of the State House. It comes from activism on the ground. But I have to tell you, the Congressional Black Caucus and so many of us have been working tirelessly on criminal justice reform way before George Floyd's knee, the knee of that police officer was on George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. What came of it was finally the Congressional Black Caucus took the leadership role within the House Democratic Caucus, and we passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to hold police accountable in our courts, to improve transparency, to improve police training and practices, and to end racial profiling, to mandate training on racial bias, to ban no-knock warrants that killed Breonna Taylor, to ban chokeholds that killed George Floyd, and finally, to make lynching a federal crime. That bill passed the House, but is sitting on the Senate side, languishing like 275 other bills that are sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk and he refuses to take up. Elections have consequences. Unprecedented times require unprecedented action. And I'm here to tell you that this election matters more than any other. We simply cannot take another 4 years of this administration. We need a national strategy to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot leave it up to each state to know what's best when we have federal response, require a federal response to oversee the overwhelming need of a coordinated effort for PPE, a coordinated effort of what's best practices when it comes to testing, contact tracing, isolation, and treatment. Now, our federal response, I must tell you, is ongoing and was rapid. We did pass in March the CARES Act, a $2 trillion package, which has helped become a lifeline for Alabama families to make their mortgage payments and to keep food on the table, for the hospitals to remain open, for our small businesses to remain open, and for those who have been unemployed to receive unemployment benefits, not just the $275 from the state, but $600 of a federal pandemic unemployment compensation. That expired in August, the end of August. But it was House Democrats, I'm proud to say, that 90 days ago, not just passed the CARES Act, we passed the HEROES Act, which would give another $2 trillion in aid, another round of stimulus checks, would have increased the amount of money that we gave to our schools for school reopenings, and it would help Alabama families keep afloat. Now, I know that the state of Alabama still has the $1.78 billion that it got from the CARES Act, and it is seeking to distribute that money. I'm very proud to have worked with Anthony Daniels and with Representative Anthony Daniels, as well as State Senator Bobby Singleton, on making sure that our priorities were made a part of the agenda. But it's going to require rigorous accountability and transparency. The state received, again, $1.78 billion, and we must hold our state accountable. We are dying at disproportionate rates, and our people need testing and treatment. We need help with nutritional assistance. School openings require PPE and testing in our schools, testing in our communities, not just on odd hours, but continuously. And our small businesses are still suffering. I was proud to work across the aisle to extend the nutritional assistance that schools can now continue to provide even during distance learning for our children. That will be extended through December 31st. We also know that the HEROES Act is needed, and negotiations have been stalled. I know that the only way that we can truly address this is if we continue to look to one another for support. Now, I believe unprecedented times require unprecedented action, and there's no action that's more needed than our vote. We know collectively the right to vote was earned on the backs of Alabamians. We owe it to our ancestors and to future generations to stand up and be counted. No one should be on the sidelines on an election this important. An election to do away with an administration that has done unprecedented things, separated children and families at the border. Now trying to make sure that we undermine this election by undermining the United States Postal Service, seeking to install fear and intimidation for our voting during using absentee ballots. And we cannot allow that to happen. Why? Because our communities are depending upon us to help lead the charge, and all of us have a role to play. Let's seek to mobilize, to organize our communities to get out the vote. We not only must organize and mobilize, we must turn out. And we have options. We have to have a voter plan now. And what should that voter plan include? That voter plan, we should make sure that all of our constituents understand what the deadlines are to register to vote for this November election, when the deadlines are for applications for absentee ballots, October 29th. We must also know when we must return our ballots. We must know that when we submit our application, we have to still provide a copy of our photo ID. When we get our ballots, we must immediately turn them in. Let's not wait until the deadline. We know that they can be turned in up to the day before the election, November 2nd. But we need to be asking and making applications right now to vote by absentee. Why? Because we know we're safer at home during this pandemic. But we have to use every avenue available to us, which means that we must ensure in-person voting as well. We have to, in this global pandemic, make sure that we have adequate poll workers. We know that so many of our polling stations usually have elderly folks working the polling stations. We need to now volunteer and make sure that we have lots of standby workers prepared to go to the polls to make sure that they are manned. The poll working will be critically important, as it will be critically important to ensure that we socially distance and that we mitigate the risk of catching COVID-19. Yes, we indeed live in unprecedented times, but I know that the action that we require is action that we've done before. We know because we saw in the civil rights movement how strategic and tactical that movement was. It wasn't mere happenstance that they went to Selma to incite Sheriff Clark or went to Birmingham because of Bull Connor. We have to be just as strategic in ensuring that this generation and every generation has the right to vote. We lost a giant in John Lewis, and I lost a mentor and dear friend. I was proud of our state for giving him a hero's welcome. From Troy to Selma to the state capital of Montgomery. But his life and his legacy still lives on. The Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in 2013 in the Shelby versus Holder decision. And I have issued the seminal piece of legislation in 3 successive Congresses, the Voting Rights Advancement Act. But it was because we went to the polls in 2018 and took back the House of Representatives that bill, after 6 years and 3 successive Congresses, finally passed the House of Representatives, December 6th, 2019. Now, the bad news is that it's sitting on the desk of Mitch McConnell, languishing, like so many other bills. But the good news? Well, the good news is that we have an election coming up in 61 days. 61 days will determine who will be in the majority in the House and who will be in the majority in the Senate. And most importantly, who will have control of the White House. I'm also happy to report that we renamed H.R. 4. It is now renamed the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act of 2020. I know that nothing would bring John greater joy than knowing that this vital piece of legislation was passed, not just by the House, but by the Senate and signed into law. Because the reality is that we have not yet achieved the dream of that beloved community that John talked about. In fact, we currently have a president who openly rails against voting. Voting by mail, he says, is fraud. The United States Postal Service is under attack from within. A man appointed by this president with no experience in postal service now controls the Postal Service. State legislatures are working hard to make sure that it is not as difficult for Americans to vote by making sure that we have absentee ballots and we know our deadlines. We have to do the same in Alabama. Now, we no longer have to count how many jars or how many jelly beans are in a jar, but we do know that old battles have become new again. Now more than ever, we have to urge our constituents to have a voting plan for how they will vote and how their family will vote. First, they have to make sure that they have not been purged from the rolls. They must know the state deadlines. We must know where our polling station is, and we must vote early. Be the first to vote during early voting. Be the first to get there on election day to vote in person. We have to be vigilant, and our vigilance will pay off, because what we know is that we're stronger together as we endure this pandemic. We're stronger together if we unite and mobilize to bring out the vote. And we know that all things are possible if we keep the faith. John Lewis often said that the vote was the most important nonviolent tool in our democracy. Our democracy was made great by the civic engagement of Alabamians. I want our state to lead the charge when it comes to turnout in this election. While we may not be able to turn the state of Alabama blue, we sure can make it purple. We have done it before. We must reelect Doug Jones. Our lives depend upon making sure that we have a majority in the Senate and the House and a working majority in the White House to get things done. During this pandemic, our lives do depend upon it. And the racial reckoning, well, it can only occur not in the halls of Congress, not in the State House, but on the streets. Grassroots activism and civic engagement is the key. We must also complete our census. We now have until September 30th to make sure that each and every one of our counties and our cities in the state of Alabama turns in the census form. So much is at stake. Billions of dollars flow to the state of Alabama based on population. And the only way that we can ensure that those federal funds get to our communities, the Black Belt, rural Alabama, urban and underserved Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Mobile, Huntsville, we have to complete our census. We're currently 8 percentage points behind the completion rate of 2010. We have work to do. Let's roll up our sleeves and work as hard as we possibly can to engage our communities. So in closing, I want to give us a call to action. That call to action is quite simple. We have to vote, volunteer, organize, turn out, and elect people who we know share our values up and down the ballot. Let's make sure that 2020 presidential election is an election that will yield us the results we so desperately need. On all fronts, it matters. I want to also close with my very last conversation with John Lewis. I called John to see how he was doing 2 weeks before he passed. And while I couldn't speak to him directly, he nodded as I said, "John, we will continue your life's work. We know we owe a debt of gratitude to you and that Moses generation that fought the good fight. Those of us who are beneficiaries of your hard work must and will carry on. Let's do so together. Let's start today." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I love how you refer to Alabama's extraordinary citizens having the temerity and audacity to fight for justice. Thank you for your service and your continued work, your relentless work on behalf of our region, our state, and our country. I just want to close out by saying that systemic racism from colonial America to Jim Crow to peonage has persisted on this soil and its vestiges continue to the present day. We've made progress, but we must continue to struggle to make more progress until we achieve equity. Together, we will make this country live up to its creed so that every man will have the opportunity to pursue his own life, liberty, and happiness. I want to just thank you and thank everyone. And I just want to say, everyone enjoy this extended weekend. I will now turn this over to our esteemed House Minority Leader, Representative Anthony Daniels, a man that I will continue to fight with, and I would not mind spending time behind enemy lines in the foxhole with him because I know he'll have my back.
I want to first thank Congresswoman Sewell for those powerful remarks. Each time that I hear you speak or hear her speak, I get more and more excited and really can feel the passion from her remarks and really see her leading by example. She don't just talk the talk, but she walked the walk in Washington. And anyone that you talk to could tell you that Congresswoman Sewell is always fighting for Alabama. So I want to thank you for that, Congresswoman, and thank you for your leadership and your friendship. And thank you, Representative Chestnut, for your work and your leadership. And really, I admire the work that you do and the fight that you've been able to, the things you've been able to do to really help us move the needle with very difficult and complex situations in the legislature. So certainly appreciate you for that. I'd also like to thank all of the individuals that are tuning in online, whether it's Facebook Live or on the YouTube links, the public and the official links. And so I just want to thank all of you that are tuning in for tuning in. But I just want to, really open up by saying that you're in for a treat this evening. You're going to receive a tribute regarding the injustices that have happened due to police brutality in this country. You'll see some in-state and out-of-state things that have happened. But we want to honor these individuals and their lives and like as Congresswoman said, we want to continue to fight. And so I also want to thank the county commissioners, the mayors, the judges, all of the elected officials, that the police, law enforcement, all of the individuals that were speakers during this conference. We've had a phenomenal week. I've received so many positive comments about what the content that's been provided from, as the Congresswoman mentioned, Brian Stevenson, to Mayor Mike Tubbs, our own Senator Doug Jones, and all the wonderful content that's been shared. And last but not least, our awesome, dedicated Congresswoman Terry Sewell. And so I just want to kind of go through an overview of the evening. The remainder of the evening, you'll hear, enjoy live music, but also you'll see a presentation, a tribute to those lives that have been lost due to police violence, and an overview of some of the next steps, a call to action. And so without further ado, I want to turn it over to T. Baldwin Music for some live entertainment.
song. I know it is. I know y'all know this song. You're gonna love this song when we sing it. Yeah.
Can't understand why we treat each other in this way. Taking our time with the silly, silly, silly game we play. Yeah. We've got so much, we could all be having so much fun. Oh, we are one.
See y'all singing.
No matter what we do, we are one. Our love will see us through. We are one. No matter what we do, we are one.
It's my favorite part.
Sometimes I feel that we're trying to make each other say, I don't know what things we do, try to make each other so damn mad. We've got so much, we could all be having so much fun. Oh, we are one. No matter what we do, we are one.
y'all dance stepping. Yeah. Wherever you are, come on, let me see. We are one. We are one. We are one. We are one. I know, right?
Yeah,
Keep
my
going.
bad. I ain't
That
gonna
was
do it. I ain't gonna
good.
do that. I ain't gonna
That
do
was
that.
good. You was feeling.
I'm enjoying the groove. We're gonna keep it going, all right? Any Anita Baker fans? What'd you think about it? Huh?
I'm
You
saying
like
that's
it?
what they saying.
Oh, that's what. Okay.
Yeah, y'all sing.
Crowd noise. Okay.
No?
I hear you. You
No,
lame,
no.
Toya. You
Okay.
lame.
I'm gonna try to do it. Slap it. When we met, always knew I would feel the magic with you on my mind, constantly in my arms is where you should be. I love you here by me, baby. You let my love fly free. I want you in my life for all time. I'm caught up in the rapture of love. Nothing else can compare. What I feel when I'm with you, feelings always new. But nothing else can compare. What I feel when I'm with you, feelings always
Put some hearts on the screen for Miss Toya Jones.
Oh, I ain't sung that in so long.
Yeah, music provided to you by T-Ball and Music. We all the way down here in Montgomery, Alabama.
Hey, y'all.
Type in the comments if you're enjoying yourself. Let us get some thumbs up, some hearts or something. Let's get some interaction. We're going to keep it moving. You know, I like another little Anita Baker song that you do.
Oh, what is it?
It's called, I think Steve-O know what it is already.
Okay, what is it?
We're going to keep it moving. Check it out.
Let me see.
Check it out. What it is. What's up?
What's up?
Oh, this ain't that kind of
Oh,
gig.
sorry.
Here we go. 1,
Yeah,
2.
yeah, yeah. If I could, I'd give you the world, wrap it all around you. Won't be satisfied with just a piece of this heart, my angel. Oh, angel, you're my angel. Oh, angel. Dreams are dreams, some dreams come true. I found a real dream, baby, when I found you. You're so strong and tender too. You're my angel. Oh, angel. You're my angel. Oh, angel. Yeah. Love the way we touch. I like the way it feels. Every time you're near me, my just heart won't keep still. No doubt about it that this love I share is real. My angel, you're my angel. Oh, angel, you're my angel.
Y'all give it up for Miss Toya Jones.
I wasn't ready yet.
You wasn't ready?
No.
I'm sorry. You should have let me know.
It's okay. It's okay.
Cool. We're going to keep the groove going. Hopefully, we're getting some hearts out there.
I hope we getting hearts.
Yeah.
I
I'm going
hope
to check.
y'all
I'm going to check.
enjoying us. Look, he said he gonna check. Ike gonna check.
Yeah. I ain't going to check.
No, he's Joe. Joe Jackson.
Look, Toya, you
Yeah.
do a great job at some Whitney Houston.
Oh.
You scared to do Whitney?
I'm not scared. I just don't know what his voice is gonna do. What is it gonna be?
hey.
I believe.
Ooh, Shaha.
Ah. Drink some water for y'all. I believe in you and me. I believe that we will be in love eternally. to be right where you are, my love. Oh, you know I love you, boy. I will never leave you out. I will always let you in, boy, to places no one's ever been deep inside. Can you see? I believe in you and me. See, maybe I'm to feel the way I do, but I will play the fool forever just to be with you forever. I believe in miracles, and now a miracle, and yes, baby, you're my dream come true. I was lost, now I'm free. 'Cause I believe in you and me. Turn down the lights, turn down the pain, turn down these voices inside my head. Lay down with me, tell me no lies, just hold me close, patronize. 'Cause I can't make you love me if you don't. I can't make your heart feel something it won't. Here in the dark, in these hours, I will lay down my heart and feel the power. If you don't, no, you won't. 'Cause I can't make you love me if you don't. And you can't make the heart feel something it won't. Here in the dark, in these final hours, I will lay down my heart and feel the power. If you don't, if you don't.
Miss Toya Jones, let us see some hearts.
Y'all giving me hearts? I'm sending hearts my way.
Is the truth, said he is so real, and I love the way that he makes me feel. And if I am a reflection of him, then I must be flat, because his light shines so bright. I remember the very first from another life. Like that from maybe I was his husband, maybe he was my wife. And things I don't like about him are fine with me. 'Cause it's not hard for him to understand me, 'cause he's so much like me. And it's truly my pleasure to share his company. And I know that it's God's gift to breathe the air he breathes. 'Cause he is the truth, and he is so real. I love the way that he makes me feel. And if I am a reflection of him, then I must be fly, because his light has shone so bright I will lie. No. How can the same man that makes me so mad turn right around and kiss me so softly? If he ever left me, I wouldn't even be sad. No, it's a blessing in every lesson, and I'm glad that I know that all the truth. Said he is so real. I love the way that he makes me feel. And if I am a reflection of him, then I must be fly, because his light shines so bright I will lie. You're my black brother, strong brother. There is no one above you. I choose to. I'm here for you forever, true. Black, strong, like that. Black, strong. Black brother, strong brother. There is no one above you. I choose to. I'm here for you forever, true. 'Cause you're my black brother, strong brother. There is no one above you. I want you to know that I'm here for you forever, true.
Thank y'all.
I want to thank T-Ball Music for those that find doing the relaxation and really motivating music. And they always do a great job. So I want to thank them. Also like to thank all of the public officials that have tuned in, and those individuals that are tuning in on Facebook and other streaming mechanism like YouTube. And so I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. But today was dedicated to Social Justice Day for a reason. Is that we have to be reminded that we have so far to go. Yeah, we've come a long way, but we have so far to go. You know, on June 10th, 1963, President John F. Kennedy sent troops to accompany the first Black students admitted to the University of Alabama. And in an address to the nation, he said, "It's not enough to pin the blame on others. To say this is a problem of one section of the country or another, or deplore the fact that we face. A great change is at hand. And our task, our obligation is to make that revolution, that change peaceful and constructive for all. Those who do or say nothing are inviting shame and are complicit. Those who act boldly are recognizing right as well as reality." 60 years later, that task is still at hand. The job is still far from done. And more often, it seems like we're losing ground. It sure seems like that way the past few months. We've been through this before. You know, Ahmaud Arbery is not the first African American to be ambushed and murdered by men claiming to be protecting their neighborhood simply because he seemed out of place. And it's not the first case of such that was being swept under the rug. Breonna Taylor is not the first African American female to be killed in their own home by police searching for a suspect who wasn't there. Christian Cooper is not the first African American to have the cops suspiciously called on him and to be falsely accused of menacing a white woman. And the latest tragedy that the world knows about George Floyd, he's not the first African American to be brutally assaulted and killed at the hands of police officers. And his violent death is not the first to be videotaped and broadcast across the internet, social media, and television. The question is, how do we make it the last? How do we ensure that his death and our anger isn't in vain? But not only his death, but the death of Blake. For too many of us, institutional racism is a fact of life, a daily life. And when the system begins to crack and crumble under the strains of decades of injustice and inequality, only then do we say enough is enough. Only then do we push through the same cycle we're going through right now. Anger is warranted, but it's not enough to get enraged, despondent, frustrated, and mad. It's not enough to protest. It's not enough to lash out. And it would never be enough until we begin to change the underlying and lingering conditions that make racism a reality, that makes us a part of the American experience. If you think the system is already working fairly for all people, I ask, by whose standards? Not mine. Our laws, our leaders, and our system of our government were never intended to be stagnant. If you find it acceptable to turn victims into suspects, looking for any possible way to justify this ruthless behavior, I ask, for every instance of injustice recorded, how many have gone unrecorded? The answer is too many to count. What accusations would have been dug up and leveled then? We will never know. After all, it's much easier to defame someone who's not alive to defend themselves. Of course, we won't all agree on the best course of action, but I hope that we could all agree that the status quo cannot to continue to take the action without action being required. That all the more reason we need to start talking. And to those who don't want to have this conversation, who may feel uncomfortable and embarrassed, let's not give them a choice. Let's make it an issue. Let's prioritize recognizing right and reality instead of inviting shame and violence. Let's start today and not stop until we succeed. We simply cannot allow this to happen another day. What will this week's protest lead to next week and next month or next year? Starting now, we must have the conversation at every ballot box and every election, municipal, state, congressional, and so on. If you want your voice to be heard, presidential cycles are fine, but real actionable change begins at the local level. Mayors and city councils appoint police chiefs. We elect DAs, sheriffs, legislators, judges, and coroners. State representatives and senators make laws, but law enforcement applies them. We all have the role to play in the righting the wrongs by revisiting outdated and closed-minded policies that continue to plague communities across the state, replacing them with a new vision. So in Alabama, we must come to terms that our legacy of racism and commit to eradicating injustice, or we will never escape this cycle. As a policymaker and a leader in the state, I cannot tell anyone, and my son or anyone, that we're fully turned the page on our dark and violent past. But I can tell you what needs to be done. Change starts with commitment. Individuals must resolve to break this cycle, the influence, and we have to do it by neighborhood after neighborhood. We must elect leaders that think like us. We must work together. I invite and I welcome all Alabamians to join me in this task as an obligation to each other, to ourselves, because together, let's continue this work. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our tribute video, being the next voice that you hear. Thank you.
Protesters of different ages and races demanding answers in the shooting death of 18-year-old Michael Brown. Trayvon Martin.
Of Dana Fletcher's E.J. Bradford Jr.
Crystal Ragland.
Ahmaud Arbery.
Elijah McClain.
Sandra Bland. They have George Floyd. Breonna Taylor.
What's it going to take for you guys to be okay tonight and to stop this chaos?
It ain't me. It's not me. I'm going to let y'all know that now. It's not us guys neither. This is what you get out of you taking a loved one from someone. You get a lot of people that's hurt and they can't vent the right way. And no, it's not going to end today. I can't tell you it's going to end tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to end. But it's for y'all to start.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, pick it nice and pick it sad. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on.
They're spewing this fear, right? Like, we're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. It's amazing. Why we keep loving this country, and this country does not love us back.
Thank you. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen thus far. We have a few more items to close out tonight. But before we get to that particular segment, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors. None of this will be possible without the sponsors and the support of our sponsors throughout this entire conference. We typically meet in person. This is an annual conference. It's called the Pro-Growth Policy Conference. In this particular conference, we talk about policies that help communities grow. This year, we did something a little bit different. We've included judges and county commissioners and mayors and city council members to the conference. We have sessions that really where legislators and all of the elected officials are having conversations about how do we promote growth in our communities, and how do we work together, and how do we create regionalism so that the entire region grows, and how that benefits local communities. And so we've had a tremendous conference. The first day was about leadership. So we had the mayor of Stockton, California, Mayor Michael Tubbs. We started off with our U.S. Senator, Senator Doug Jones, and he gave us an update and talked about where we are and the things that he's fighting for. One issue in particular, he talked about healthcare and how He's fighting to ensure that Alabama get an opportunity to apply for the dollars for the Affordable Care Act, so that we're able to get the CARES Act dollars into Alabama. But we know that we are faced with a lot of difficulties in COVID-19. It's really challenging, especially as the Congresswoman mentioned, in communities of color. We're experiencing high fatalities for a state that have 26% of its population being African American. It's above 40% of the fatalities of those individuals that have contracted COVID-19. And so we have to do better. COVID-19 has really exposed our healthcare infrastructure and a lot of the heat maps. And we're beginning to see that our people need us. And so leaders are starting to come together to have the conversations about how do we help our communities? How do we move our communities? Maybe what we're doing right now is not necessarily working for all communities. And so how do we reevaluate what we're doing to make certain that it's not a one-size-fit-all approach, but it's something that is specific to the community that we're trying to help? Our education system, we realize the difficulties that COVID-19 has brought upon us, where most school systems are doing virtual learning, some school systems are doing a hybrid, and we're still trying to continue as business as usual, but it's very difficult during this pandemic. And so we're learning a lot. But I will tell you that both Democrats and Republicans and individuals that may not be into the partisan politics, we're all having conversations about where do we go from here? How do we integrate or implement policies that's going to help all communities? And so I just want you to know that this is what we're working on. But as leaders, we know a little bit about a lot of things. And so we're depending on each and every one of you that are viewing and those that are close to you that may have solutions to some of the problems that we're facing in our state and in our country. And we're open to that, because there's no magic bullet and there's no magic wand to fix all of our problems, because if there were, we would have done it by now. So I just want to reiterate my appreciation for all of the leaders and our sponsors and everyone that tuned into our conference this week. So we'll be turning it over here momentarily to our entertainment and a video from Judge Tanya Acker. And so, I just want to thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in person next year. And hopefully we will be back to normal. But we certainly appreciate you and all that you do.
Hello, Alabama. Thank you so much for your work. Look, justice is on trial, and if we want to get the verdict that we want, we are going to need your help, and we are going to need to commit ourselves doubly to the work that you are doing. So thank you for that work, and please know that the rest of us are right here there for you. Go Alabama.
Mic check 1, 2. Woo. Oh my goodness, we're live right now. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in today. This is a virtual party being thrown by the Alabama Democratic Party. If you a Democrat and you know it, let me see you put them donkeys in the comment section. Let me see you boot up for me real quick. This is the Alabama Pro-Growth Policy Conference. I'm your girl DJ Meek, straight live on the 1s and 2s. Man, I just want to come and play something inspirational and groovy for us today. Cause black lives do matter. Brown lives matter. White lives matter. Rich lives and poor lives matter. Huh? Hey, one time for my friends from T-Ball and Music and Toya Jones. Y'all got me feeling real groovy today. Everybody, 2020 is taking us through it. But I just want you to know you got to keep your head to the sky and stay prayed up. And vote Democrat this November. Watching with us tonight. Let me see you move with it like. Right foot stomp. Come on. Left foot stomp. Let me see you. Cha-cha with your right. Let me see you. Cha-cha with your left. Let me see you. Turn to the right. Then move to the left. Back it up. And jump. And right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. You cha-cha with your right. You cha-cha with your left. You turn to the right. And move to the left. Back it up. And jump. And right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. You cha-cha with your right. You cha-cha with your left. You turn to the right. And move to the left. Back it up. And jump. And right foot stomp. And left foot stomp. You cha-cha
your right, you cha-cha with your left, you turn to the right and move to the left. Back it up and jump.
One time for the old school chicks. Slide to the left, slide to the right, slide to the left, slide to the right. One time, shouts out to the Alabama Democratic Caucus throwing the party. Because that's what it is. Hit your friends up, share the video, let them know, man. We're going live. This is how the Democrats do, man. We party, we turn up for the people. Let's go, y'all. Let me see you. Slide, 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 slide. Drop it down and slide, slide. Drop it down and slide, hey.
Everybody clap your hands. Clap, 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 clap your hands. Clap, 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 clap your hands. All right, now, we're going to do the basic step. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. Right foot, let's stomp. Left foot, let's stomp. Cha-cha, real smooth. Turn it out. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. Right foot, let's stomp. Left foot, let's stomp. Cha-cha now, y'all. Now it's time to get funky. To the right now. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. One hop this time. One hop this time. Right foot, two stumps. Left foot, two stumps. Slide to the left. Slide to the right. Crisscross. Crisscross. Cha-cha, real smooth. Let's go to work. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. Two hops this time. Two hops this time. Right foot, two stumps. Left foot, two stumps. Hands on your knees, hands on your knees. Get funky with it. Oh, yeah. Come on. Cha-cha now, y'all. Turn it out. To the left. Take it back now, y'all. Five hops this time. Everybody clap your hands. Come on, y'all. Check it out, y'all. How low can you go? Can you go down low? All the way to the floor? How low can you go? Can you bring it to the top? Like you never stop? Can you bring it to the top? One hop. Right foot now. Left foot now, y'all. Cha-cha, real smooth, 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 smooth.
I'm bringing sexy back. The mother boys don't know how to act. I think it's special what's behind your back. So turn around and I'll pick up the slack. Dirty babe, you see these shackles, baby, I'm your slave. I'll let you whip me if I misbehave. It's just that no one makes me feel this way. Take it to the chorus. Come here, girl. Go, baby, go with it. Come to the back. Go, baby, go with it. VIP. Go, baby, go with it. Drinks on me. Go, baby, go with it. What you twerking with? Go, baby, go with it. Look at those hips. Go, baby, go with it. Make me smile. Go, baby, go with it. Go ahead, child. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up. Go, baby, go with it. Get your sexy up.
Follow me, 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 yeah, follow me. I'm hoping to see the day when my people can all relate. We must stop fighting to achieve the peace that was taught in our country. Ooh, you better work that, work that. We shall all be free.
One time for my house hands checking in.
Follow me. Why don't you follow me to a place where we can be free? Yeah. Come with me.
Do you hear what he said to you?
Over there.
He said, follow me to a place where we can all be free. We gotta stop fighting and keep the peace. Let's go, y'all.
Can you feel it? It's in the air. Now it's time for changes. Time for us to care. Follow me. Why don't you follow me to a place where we can be free? Yeah, yeah. Rock with me real quick, Alabama. Shouts out to the Alabama Democratic Caucus on the party. Cause it is a party, baby. Don't try to fight it.
There ain't nothing that you can do. Relax your mind. Lay back and groove with mine. You gotta feel that heat, and we can ride the boogie. Share that beat of love.
Let me hear you sing.
I'll rock with you
all night.
Dance you into the
sunlight. All night. Let's go, Alabama. Come on.
Out on the floor, there ain't nobody there but us. Girl, when you dance, there's a magic that must be love. Just take it slow. 'Cause we got so far to go. When you feel that heat, and we gonna ride the boogie. Share that beat of love. I wanna rock with you all night. Dance you into the sunlight. Rock with you all night. We gonna rock the night away. And when the groove is dead gone, yeah, you know that love survives. So we can rock forever.
I like that, Alabama. You know how we slide that thing. Come on, come on. I wanna rock with you. I wanna roll with you. This you got low, 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 low. Hey. Once again, y'all, shouts out to the Alabama Democratic Caucus for throwing the party. I'm your girl, DJ Meek, 334 on the ones and twos. Thanks for tuning in to us tonight, because it is a party on this Thursday night. Hey, shouts out to T-Ball Music LLC for having me. And make sure y'all get out and vote in November, man. Make sure you get out and vote for the ad valorem tax in Montgomery so we can improve our public school system. Make sure you get out and vote for all our Democratic senators and congressmen. And make sure that you vote for a Democratic president, because I'm tired of the Cheetos. Every day is something. We already got to deal with COVID. It's enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Let's cut this thing off with him. Hey, hey. One time for my Alabama chicks. Two times for my Alabama chicks. Hey. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Come on. Alabama get low, 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 low.
I ain't never seen nothing that'll make me go this crazy. On like spinning my dough. Had $1 million vibe in the body to go. Them birthday cakes, they stole the show. So sexual, she was flexible, professional, drinking Xano. Hold up, wait a minute, do I see what I think I will? Did a thing I seen, sure to get low. Ain't the same when it's up that close. Make it rain, I'm making it snow. Work the pole, I got the bang bro. I'ma say that I prefer them no clothes. I'm into that, I love women exposed. She threw it back at me, I gave her more. Cash ain't a problem, I know where it goes. She had them.